All right, guys, by now you have heard about this whole situation with Jinxie and a post by Ilka. As one of, if not the longest content creators still going for this game, I felt like many of you would want to hear my take on this. I started playing Clash Royale in alpha, so before it was ever even out in beta in Canadian stores or anything like that. I was over at the Supercell HQ. I had the opportunity to check it out, and I knew that the game was going to be absolutely incredible. All of us creators at that time were playing Clash of Clans, and I was actually playing Bloons Tower Defense Battles. I've recently hopped back onto BDD6, which has been a lot of fun. But many people were afraid to play Clash Royale when it first came out, especially the Clash of Clans creators, because their audiences were set in stone and the games were very, very different. Just because it had its own IP, it didn't mean that it was going to be good. Or it didn't mean that it was going to be unique and there was going to be a jump. So people who liked Clash of Clans liked Clash Royale. That wasn't guaranteed. In fact, the funny thing is, the very first video that I ever made of Clash Royale, I clickbaited to be like Bloons, because Bloons at that time was killing it for me. Some of my most viewed videos on my channel are Bloons videos. And I posted it and I said, this new tower defense game from Supercell. So I was trying to let my Bloons viewers know that this was kind of like a tower defense game. And it is a tower defense game in a way, but obviously not very similar to Bloons and whatnot. And so I've been around for a while. I have seen the ups, the downs, all of that. And I can speak from my experience that things have definitely changed at the company. I think some of that was probably the acquiring from Tencent, but I don't know any information on that. That's just speculation. But one thing that I do know is as games grow larger, and there are more mouths to feed, if you will, when it comes to creators, it begins to be daunting for teams and developers to understand how to continue to make all of those creators feel valuable. One of the biggest examples of this that I like to look at is Ninja and Fortnite. Ninja wouldn't have gotten where he was without Fortnite, but Fortnite wouldn't have gotten to where he was, or Fortnite wouldn't have gotten to where it was without Ninja at the same time. There is that relationship, and that needs to be recognized. In fact, it is incredibly ignorant and tone deaf to not recognize the impact that creators have on games. Now, myself, I'm no longer a big dog in the Clash Royale scene, but myself, Chief Pat, Nick at Night, Clash with Ash, and others, OJ, are many of the creators who paved the way for creators now. And so I wanted to read this to y'all. I've met Ilka many times before. He is an incredibly kind and caring person who never, ever appeared prideful or anything like that. He always took the time to come and talk. And I think that some of what is going on here from Ilka's standpoint is probably him just not knowing. And I don't think that that's fully an excuse, but I imagine he's at the point now in his relationship with the company where he's involved in some of the top tier stuff, but he has hired people underneath him to handle everything that's going on. And he's probably just spending time with his family and enjoying his success. And again, I don't think that that's fully an excuse, but I do think that that can answer some of the questions of what appears to be ignorance in the statement. Ignorance in the sense that he just doesn't know because nobody informed him. I don't think that Ilka is on Twitch watching Jinxie stream. I don't think that he's doing that. I could be wrong there, but I'm not trying again to think that this statement is true or good. I do think that it should have been reviewed because this is a PR nightmare because of how incorrect it is. I said last year I called Brawl Stars growth historic. Now I'm about to use that word again for Clash Royale. Royale's engaged players doubled New players grew by almost 500%. Every major measure of playtime and engagement grew significantly, and maybe most importantly, Clash Royale once again became the game to play with friends around the world. Felt like 2016 again. Has it really been almost 10 years? I want to take a moment to celebrate this because what happened deserves celebrating. A game approaching its 10th year didn't just hold on, it exploded. That's extraordinarily rare in our industry. Yes, the obvious question, what did the team do? So I went on, blah, 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 accredited the team that, we'll go through this in a little bit. Jinxie kind of crashes out on stream, rightfully so. Because I would say that, let's say maybe 85% of this growth that's mentioned was from Jinxie. Before Jinxie started playing Clash, Kin was actually bringing life back to the game. And I think that there's Kin was the mountain that then led to the freaking, I don't know. There's not another word. But Kin was like the first person to kind of start kicking this off again as the game was dying. And then Jinxie hopped on. Him and Kin started collabing. I got to go on with Jinxie and collab, which was awesome. Riley, obviously. Mo. I'm not on TikTok, but I met Royale, and he's the homie. He was super cool, fun to hang out with and chat with at Worlds. Him and other TikTokers. Everybody, let's say Jinxie was 85% of the growth, maybe 80%. We can look at all those other creators, myself no longer included. All those other creators, Jinxie and those creators add up to 97% of this growth. And let's say maybe 3% is due to the team and the Evos and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm not saying that in an insulting way, but if you are not able to recognize where the growth is coming from and not A, be grateful for it, but B, understand that it wasn't you, then you're going to take credit for things that you think you did, and then you're going to try them again, and then you're going to fail, and then sadly enough, the game is going to be in a very bad place. Here is something that I want to acknowledge that I've said in a couple of other videos that is really important to recognize. Clash Royale has no direct competitors. It just doesn't. So if you think about this, if you have something like Escape from Tarkov and then Arc Raiders. If I was a content creator for Escape from Tarkov and Arc Raiders came over, I could jump to that game and bring 95% of my audience to that game. If I played PUBG and then Fortnite comes over, you guys remember that jump when that happened? You can bring most of your audience over. Clash Royale does not have a direct competitor that their player base will go to when they make mistakes. They just don't have that direct competitor. And because of that, it removes the awareness of failure. Because people who are addicted to the game or just play it because they play it are still there, and so it kind of puffs up the numbers for them when they aren't really recognizing what's going on. If there had been a direct competitor, I don't think Brawl Stars is a direct competitor. I don't think Clash of Clans is a direct competitor. They're completely different games, completely different player bases. Some people play all of them because they're just gamers. But if you're a Clash Royale player, there is no other game that you can jump to that is significant that will fill that gap for you. And so for too long, they've been given a get out of jail free card when they make mistakes. And that's because there's no direct competitor for people to jump to. And so when level 15 came out, if there was another direct competitor, they probably would have lost a very large amount of their player base and things would have plummeted even more so. Now, with level 16 and heroes, there's nowhere for anybody to go. And so a lot of people are just like, I'm going to boycott the game. And then 2 weeks later, they remember that they've already spent $1,000 in the game. And they're like, oh, okay, I'll just go back and play, whatever. Because there isn't a understandable leapfrog over to a different game that makes sense. And so there is so much grace that Supercell is receiving that they shouldn't be receiving. My hope is that they would have a competitor to hold them accountable. Think about this. If you are a cross-country runner and you are running by yourself, are you going to run better and faster by yourself, or are you going to run better and faster when you hear somebody's footsteps approaching you and you realize, wait a second, there's a chance for this person to win? Clash Royale doesn't have those footsteps approaching them. They don't have anybody challenging them from behind, pushing them forward, which is what we need. That's my hope. I don't want Clash Royale to die because I love it. And Jinxie said this on his stream the other day. He doesn't want it to die because of all the creators that this game is a livelihood for. This game has paid my bills for an incredibly long time. And I have gone through seasons with this game where I was completely disrespected, where I was wildly undervalued in like 2016, 2017, all that kind of stuff. And it hurt. It hurt to be told some of the things that I was told and some of the things that Nick at Night was told that I'm not going to share with you because it isn't important. But it was hurtful to not be valued in some ways. Now, that being said, I'm so grateful for my relationship with Supercell. And in the beginning days, I felt like the most valued person in the world. I don't know if some of this is due to team changes and all that kind of stuff, but the first team that worked on Clash Royale were the homies, man. I felt so valued. I felt so heard. Draft mode is in the game because of me. The miner's in the game for me. And the community manager recognized that, told me that, sent me messages, all of this kind of stuff. I felt valued. And then over the years, creators started being ignored. Creators started, people would get mad at them for saying they were being ignored. And they would try and like redefine the word ignore. And it's like, we're not ignoring you, we're just not responding to you. That's ignoring. Okay? If somebody is saying something to me and I'm not responding to them, I'm pretty much ignoring them. And so there was all that kind of stuff going on. And so what I think needs to happen, because obviously they do value creators because there are creator codes. There are sneak peeks. There's all of that kind of stuff. But I think what's really difficult when it comes to this statement right here is not acknowledging the obvious. This is a PR nightmare right now. Everybody has talked about it. It is a PR nightmare. And as a development company who has a massive community, you can't hide from this, man. There has got to be apologies. There's got to be acknowledgement. There's got to be all of that kind of stuff. Otherwise, the community of the content creators, so the community that supports the community, is going to bounce because of how you treat somebody that they care about. Jinxie's audience is not going to play the game because of this. Not because he's telling them not to, but because they're like, bro, what? I was here for it. I saw Jinxie do this. And for him not to be credited, and for other creators to not be credited, is absolutely nuts. And so my hope is that another development company comes out and creates a competitive game that is similar to Clash Royale, so that Clash Royale needs to stop receiving grace that they don't deserve. There is way too much that has fallen under the rug simply because there's not a competitor. And so hopefully another competitor comes along, makes the game plummet so that they're able to recognize their faults. They're able to kick it up. They're able to talk to the community, and they're able to come back with some sick updates that aren't money grabby, but that actually have content. Level 16 provided no new content. Hey, pay for this and get nothing new. Cool. What is that? So my hope, as someone who has been creating content for this before anybody else, is that a competitor comes along and starts running ahead of them, and they have to make the decision. Do we give up now and lose the race, or do we pick up the pace? Do we listen to the voices along the side that are encouraging us? And do we run back to the front? That's my hope. That is my hope for Supercell. That is my hope for Clash Royale. That they can be challenged. That they can recognize the gifts that they have been given. Especially from Jinxie. Someone who didn't need the money. Someone who didn't need the code. Someone who didn't need any of that. He just came back because he remembered the nostalgia. He said he started playing the game because of me in the beginning, a long time ago. It was super cool to meet him and be like, yo, what that? Like, I look up to him, and he was like, yo, this is crazy. That was awesome. But to not acknowledge that is wild. I hope they learn from this. I hope that the PR nightmare continues until they apologize and point out and recognize really where their success came from. I'm not saying the team didn't do anything, because obviously they made the game. Well, they didn't make the game. This team is just kind of working on the game that was already created in the past. But they need to recognize this, otherwise it's game over, man. And I hope it's not, because I love the game. Yeah. Thank you guys for listening to my rant. I hope that you enjoyed. Let's hope that a competitor comes along to push the Clash Royale team to be better. See you guys.